The metallic taste of blood coated my tongue as I lay crumpled at the foot of the basement stairs. Above me, Jessica stood still, arms out, face twisted in rage and something else. Satisfaction, maybe. I heard footsteps pounding down the stairs. Mom's voice cut through the silence. What happened here? She was looking at Jessica, not me. She fell, Jessica said quickly, stepping back. She's so clumsy. You know how she is. I tried to speak, to tell them the truth, that Jessica had shoved me after I caught her stealing from my room again. But each breath sent knives through my ribs. I didn't fall, I gasped. She pushed. That's enough, Dad snapped. We don't need your drama right now. I'm Emma Mitchell. I'm 24, finishing my medical residency. And yes, I still lived at home. Jessica, my 26-year-old sister, had moved back in 6 months earlier after flunking out of college again. Since then, things had gone from icy sarcasm to open hostility. Mom helped me sit up, and I couldn't hold back a cry of pain. We need to take her to the hospital, she said, voice tight with worry. No hospitals, Dad replied immediately. We'll handle it here. Like we always do. Those words, like we always do, rang in my ears. The same excuse they used to cover up every so-called accident. Like the sprained wrist when Jessica threw a book at me. Or the accidental concussion from a door slamming into my face. It always stayed in the family. For the family's image. But this time felt worse. Could barely breathe. She needs a doctor, Mom said again, firmer now. Dad clenched his jaw. Fine. But Emma, you know what to say, right? You fell. You're clumsy. End of story. Behind them, Jessica smirked. She always got away with it. The golden child. Every bruise I got was an accident. Every injury somehow my fault. The ER was crowded that night. As we waited, Dad kept whispering the story to me like a script. You were carrying laundry. You missed a step. A simple accident. But Dr. Sarah Martinez wasn't like our usual family doctor. She looked at me, not at my hovering parents. How did this happen? She asked. I fell down the stairs, I said automatically. The lie tasted bitter. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She glanced at my parents, then back at me. I'd like to examine Emma privately. That's not necessary, Dad began. It's hospital policy for potential trauma cases, she said, cutting him off. Please wait outside. Once the door closed, she helped me onto the exam table. Now, she said gently, why don't you tell me what really happened? Her voice was calm, steady. There was genuine concern in her eyes. I wanted to tell her everything. But the instinct to protect my family, the same family that never protected me, was still there. I told you. I fell, I whispered. She didn't push. Just looked at my arms. These bruises look like grip marks. Someone held you before the fall. Tears welled in my eyes. Let's take some x-rays, she said softly. We'll talk more after. The scans showed 3 broken ribs and a hairline fracture in my wrist. But that wasn't what made her expression darken. She pointed to older injuries. Fractures already healing, ones I never even knew about. Emma, she said, voice serious now. These aren't from just one fall. There's a pattern here. As a mandated reporter, I have to notify authorities. This looks like long-term abuse. Panic surged in me. No, please. You don't understand. My family has been covering this up, she said gently. You're a medical resident, Emma. You know what you're looking at. She was right. Studied this. I diagnosed it in patients. But somehow I never saw it in myself. Or refused to see it. I need to make some calls, Dr. Martinez said. You're safe here. We have security. They can't take you home against medical advice. Outside, I heard my father's angry voice demanding answers. But for the first time I didn't feel afraid. Felt relief. The x-rays told the truth I never could. Hours blurred together. Security stood outside my door while Dr. Martinez contacted the necessary authorities. I could hear Dad shouting, Mom trying to calm him, and Jessica crying loudly about how I was making things up. But the evidence couldn't lie. Dr. Martinez brought in Dr. Thompson, an abuse specialist. Together they walked me through each injury on the scans. These hairline fractures, Dr. Thompson explained, are defensive injuries. They suggest someone tried to protect themselves, likely from an attack. My hands trembled as I looked at the screen. Years of injuries I had dismissed as accidents. How had I believed I was just clumsy? Detective Laura Bennett arrived next. She had steady eyes and a calm voice that helped me breathe easier. "Take your time," she said, turning on the recorder. "Start from the beginning." So I did. I told her everything. The small accidents. The escalating violence. The way my parents always protected Jessica. How I'd stayed because of my residency. Because I thought if I just tried harder, they'd love me. "That's what abusers want you to think," she said. "But none of this is your fault." Just then, Dr. Martinez returned with more scans. "Emma," she said carefully, "the CT shows a previous concussion. One that never got proper treatment. Do you remember when that happened?" I nodded slowly. 3 months ago. I whispered. Jessica threw a textbook at my head when I refused to give her money. Mom told me to just sleep it off. Detective Bennett's pen moved swiftly across her notepad. "We'll need to document all of this," she said firmly. Suddenly, chaos erupted in the hallway. Jessica's voice rang out, sharp and angry. "You can't keep me from my sister. This is ridiculous. Emma, tell them the truth." I turned toward the doorway just as Jessica tried to push past the security guard, but he blocked her with a firm arm. Our eyes locked, and for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen in her before. Fear. She knew. The game was over. The X-rays had exposed every lie, every accident, every silent cover-up. No more blaming my clumsiness. No more twisting the truth. This time there was proof. "Miss Mitchell," Detective Bennett called out sternly. "I suggest you step back, or we'll add interfering with a police investigation to your charges." Jessica's face crumpled. "But I didn't mean." Her voice cracked, eyes darting toward our parents for help. But they were lost in their own unraveling. Dad was shouting at hospital administrators. Mom sat silently in a chair, her hands covering her face as she cried. Dr. Martinez returned to my side. Her presence was calm, steady. "Emma, we'd like to keep you overnight for observation," she said gently. "We're also arranging for you to speak with a counselor." "What happens now?" I asked, looking between her and Detective Bennett. "Now," Bennett said, "we build a case. The X-rays show clear evidence of repeated abuse. Combined with your statement and medical documentation, we have enough to proceed with charges." "Charges?" My voice wavered. "Yes," she said. "Against Jessica for assault, and possibly against your parents for neglect and covering up abuse. They had a legal obligation to protect you and seek medical care. They failed that." Felt surreal. 4 years I'd lived in fear, convinced I had no voice, no proof. But now, because one doctor had refused to look away, everything was beginning to change. "You don't have to decide anything today," Dr. Martinez said gently. "Focus on healing. We'll help you find temporary housing once you're discharged. Somewhere safe." "I have a friend," I said, thinking of Sarah, my best friend from med school, who had begged me to move in with her for months. Detective Bennett nodded. "Good. You'll need support." As they stepped out of the room, I could still hear the chaos of my family in the hall. But for the first time, their voices didn't fill me with dread. Because now I had something they couldn't take away. Proof. Proof that I wasn't clumsy. That I wasn't crazy or seeking attention. Proof that couldn't be twisted or erased. I picked up my phone and texted Sarah. "Remember that spare room you offered? Is it still available?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Always. For as long as you need. Want to tell me what's going on?" I looked at the X-rays still glowing on the lightboard and replied, "It's a long story. But I'm finally getting out." 6 months later, I stood in Sarah's kitchen, making coffee before my morning shift at the hospital. A folded newspaper lay on the counter. One headline caught my eye. Local woman sentenced in family abuse case. Jessica had received 2 years of probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order to stay away from me. My parents face consequences too. Dad had been removed from the hospital board. Mom's reputation in our tight-knit community had crumbled. Both had taken plea deals, probation, counseling, and community service. "You okay?" Sarah asked, entering the kitchen. She'd been my anchor through everything. The court dates, the therapy, the sleepless nights. I looked up at her and smiled. "Yeah," I said, and this time I meant it. "I really am." My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Martinez. "Ready for your presentation today?" She'd become a mentor to me, guiding me through both my medical career and healing process. Today, I was giving a talk to new residents about recognizing signs of abuse. I was even using my own X-rays, with permission, as part of the lesson. As I gathered my materials, Sarah watched me proudly. "You know," she said softly, "I'm really proud of you. Not just for leaving, but for using your story to help others." I nodded, heart full. I had once felt invisible in my own home. But now I had a voice and I planned to use it. She was right. In the months since that night in the ER, I found my voice in ways I never imagined. I helped develop new protocols for our hospital's emergency department. Guidelines designed to make it easier for staff to recognize and report suspected abuse. I wasn't just healing, I was helping others heal too. One evening I saw Jessica in the hospital parking lot. It wasn't by chance. I knew she'd been waiting for me. "Emma," she called softly, standing just outside the distance mandated by the restraining order. "Please, can we talk?" I turned to face her, really looking at her. She looked smaller. Not physically, but in presence. Less threatening, less sure of herself. I'd heard through family friends that counseling had begun to help her. She'd been diagnosed with multiple mental health issues and was finally receiving treatment. "I can't," I said firmly. "You know the restraining order." I know, she said quickly. I got your letter. Last month, as part of my own therapy, I had written to her. Not to forgive or forget, but to acknowledge our shared history, and to tell her I hoped she was getting the help she needed. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I know it's not enough, but I am. The counseling, it's helping me understand what I did. Why I did it. How much I hurt you. I'm glad you're getting help," I replied honestly. "But I need you to respect my boundaries." She nodded, wiping away tears. "I understand. I just wanted to say you're really brave, Emma. Braver than I ever was." As she walked away, I felt something shift inside me. Her apology didn't erase what she'd done, but it acknowledged a truth I had needed for so long. I was never the weak one. I had survived. That afternoon, I stood at the front of a hospital conference room, setting up for my presentation. Dr. Martinez sat in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. The room filled with new residents, their eyes bright with nervous curiosity, so much like I had been not long ago. 6 months ago, I began pulling up the first X-ray. I was the patient, not the doctor. The screen displayed images of my own injuries. These X-rays tell a story, not just of abuse but of silence. Of how violence can hide behind family walls, disguised as clumsiness or emotional instability. And how we, as medical professionals, are often the only line of defense. I clicked through each scan, explaining the fractures, the grip bruises, the missed warning signs. "We have to trust our instincts," I said. "We have to speak up when no one else can." Afterward, a young resident approached me. Her hands trembled slightly. "Dr. Mitchell," she said softly, "your story helped me understand something about one of my patients. Something I didn't before." "Trust your instincts," I told her. "Do what I wish someone had done for me sooner." That night, I returned to Sarah's house. My house now. I felt tired but fulfilled. A letter waited in the mailbox. From my parents. They'd been writing regularly, trying to make amends. Sometimes I read them, sometimes I didn't. This time I opened it. Dear Emma, we saw your interview about the hospital's new abuse prevention protocols. We are so deeply sorry for failing you, for not protecting you when you needed us most. Your courage has forced us to confront our own failures. I folded the letter and set it aside for another time. Their regret, their guilt, that wasn't mine to carry anymore. I was building a new life. One where my voice mattered. One where truth didn't have to hide behind closed doors. The X-rays that had once been silent witnesses to my pain now hung in my office, not as reminders of trauma, but as proof of survival. They spoke louder than any lie. They broke through years of silence. They gave me back something I never thought I'd reclaim. My power. Sarah had left dinner in the oven and a note on the counter. Remember, you're not just surviving anymore. You're thriving. Smiled. She was right. The X-rays had spoken the truth.